Thank you, Arlene. Yeah, I wish we had been more successful. But I love the energy from this community. My name's Eli Northrup. I'm running for state assembly in the 69th district, as Arlene mentioned, which is basically like 81st Street to 125th on the west side. So, Upper West Side, Morningside Heights, Bloomingdale. Probably a lot of people here live in that district. The current assembly member in that district, Michael Lasher, is running for Congress. So it's going to be an open seat again. So there's an open race. I ran 2 years ago. I had never run for office before. I'm a public defender. I've spent my career representing people who can't afford an attorney in Bronx criminal court. And I decided to go for it because of many of the issues I care most about. When I've gone up to Albany and traveled up there and advocated for them, I've noticed a lack of expertise in the state assembly. Anyway, I didn't win the first time around, but I'm going to go for it again. And I'd love to have your all support, and I'll talk a little bit about what brought me here. I think I've been as I mentioned, a public defender for my entire career. Before that, I was a public defender. Before that, I was actually a hip-hop artist too. But people who know that line of work, it's really a calling. It's not just a job to be a public defender. It means listening when very few other people will listen. It means showing up when things look dire. It means picking up the phone at all hours. And it means fighting when the odds are really stacked against you. I'll give you an example. A client of mine, Shamika Crawford, she was removed from her home by a senseless order of protection, separated from her children. I fought not just to ensure that she could get back into her home, but that every single New Yorker displaced by an order of protection would get a hearing before being separated from their children or displaced from their homes. That hearing is called a Crawford hearing. It's now happening in every single court across the state every day. That's fighting for systemic change, taking circumstances, fighting when the odds are stacked against you, and turning it into systemic change. I've spent 7 years going up to Albany advocating for this kind of change. I fought for a lot of criminal legal system reform. We won that in 2019. I fought for cannabis equity, making sure we repair harm done by racist policing. We won that in 2021. I've been fighting for sentencing reform in New York, changing our draconian sentencing laws. So the shirt I'm wearing right now is Communities Not Cages. It's a broad-scale reform of New York sentencing laws, which haven't been changed since the 1990s. I left here from a screening of a movie called Beyond, a documentary, which is a documentary about individuals incarcerated at Sing Sing who are serving life sentences. People who would never have gotten those sentences if they were sentenced today. But because of the ways our laws were in the 90s, because of mandatory minimums, 2 and 3 strikes laws, because we don't have laws that allow judges to revisit sentences, they are trapped there. We spend $3 billion every single year on our prison system. We spend $70,000 per person per year to incarcerate them. We spend $36,000 per child on school each year. Why are we spending double that on incarcerating individuals? These are things that motivate me from my heart and my soul. And when I've traveled up to Albany, what I've noticed is they legislate a lot in these areas, but they don't understand them. They haven't spent time on the ground. I think we need more individuals who have spent time working with other people in places of power. Nurses, teachers, social workers, firefighters. These are people who should be in office. And people who have offered public service, I think, could make great contributions. So I'd love to bring that perspective up there. I've written bills. I'm a lawyer. I've seen them passed. I've also spent time at 26 Federal Plaza standing up to ICE agents. I've represented clients who are facing deportation. The threats that are coming from Washington are real. And I think they will only increase. But if there's going to be pushback from anywhere, it's going to be the Upper West Side. I can tell you that. This is really a bulwark of progressive values. Seriously. We have to be ground zero. This is one of the most democratic, engaged neighborhoods in the entire country. That's the statistics on it. So if there is going to be pushback, it's going to come from neighborhoods like ours. It's going to come from representatives in those neighborhoods. We all know, I mean, one of the great parts about neighborhoods like this, and you can see it with this event and many others that even I've been to, there's such a sense of resistance. There's community groups in all these different areas that are ready to push back. But we need leadership and we need organization. Because with that, I think we can be the center of real resistance. I'd love to take questions that you all have. I would just say, you know, there's many, one thing that I've learned in my career is that listening to people can really be a superpower. That's how I've been able to represent people, tell their stories. So the way I'm starting my campaign off, you know, the primary's not till next June, so we're still pretty early. But the way I'm starting my campaign off is to do a listening tour. We've created a community survey. I'm going to send it to as many people as possible. I'm going to meet people at the farmers markets, town halls, the bar, wherever, and ask like what people want to see change in the neighborhood. What are your priorities? Legislatively, what do you love about the neighborhood? And those priorities will also inform my campaign priorities. You know, I want this campaign to capture the ethos of this neighborhood, the spirit of this neighborhood, and the values of the neighborhood. I'll tell you a couple of things that I care deeply about besides criminal justice. I think our small businesses need support. Between 80th and 110th Street, there are 58 vacant storefronts on Broadway alone. I think many of our beloved places in Morningside Heights, Absolute Bagels, Silver Moon Bakery, you know, they've been forced out. There's structural reasons for those displacements, and I would support some sort of rent stabilization for small businesses. There's tax loopholes that make it more cost effective for landlords to actually keep storefronts vacant that I would work to close. Other quality of life issues, e-bikes, scaffolding. The New York Times actually today published a story. There's 6 new designs for scaffolding that maybe make them less of an eyesore, but still, there's incentives you could create in law to have scaffolding be brought down earlier. Sirens, noise pollution. These things seem like minor, but when you encounter them every single day, they become major issues. And then affordability. Obviously, it can't be that the people who keep the city running, the city workers, can't afford to live in the city. And so I'm certainly somebody who would support an affordability agenda, ensure that childcare, universal childcare be passed, work to build truly affordable housing, cap rents. We saw with this mayoral election, we saw a huge support for an affordability agenda. And Saran was an amazing advocate for that agenda. But the people demanded it, right? People are demanding it. It's going to require support from Albany. And I will be an advocate in Albany, somebody that you can rely on and trust. I ran 2 years ago. I ran a campaign of joy and hope and optimism. I lost, but I didn't lose myself in the campaign. I went back to Bronx Defenders. I've been doing the work. I will continue to do the work. The only reason I'm running is to bring that same fight in this moment, in a moment where I think we really need it. So thank you for having me, and I'll take any questions. Yes.
So, in my extended family, I am lucky or unlucky enough to have both corrections officers and people who've been incarcerated. And from this perspective, it seems like what's happening inside the prisons is so incredibly awful for the people who have committed no crime and yet are not allowed to leave the prison, corrections officers. And then, of course, people who are supposed to be being rehabilitated and subjected to this horrific, violent environment. So the state prison system is collapsing in real time. And I'm not sure that Democrats are necessarily as aware of what's happening to the guards, to the staff in the prison, and how can we address misclassification, the staffing issue. You have expertise on the defense side, and I hope you can speak about once they go to prison, what happens to them. Most people will get out. They're not
Right.
They're gonna get out in a better situation than they went in.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. There is a harrowing article in the New Yorker by Rachel Lviv. I would encourage everybody to read it about the current crisis, and it talks about it from both the perspective of the officers and the perspectives of people serving long sentences. You know, the Communities Not Cages campaign, please look it up. It's a statewide campaign, over 300 organizations. We work closely with corrections officers and their unions on some of these bills. And so one thing that everybody tells us is that opportunities for rehabilitation make it safer for everybody who is incarcerated. When you don't have real opportunities, then there's no incentive, really, in the same way. People lose hope, and that leads to more violence. So one of the bills is called the Earned Time Act. It would vastly increase the amount of good time and merit time somebody can earn to get out earlier, and that has huge support from corrections officers. Right now, in New York, you can only earn, most people, about 1/7 off your sentence. That's because in the 90s, the federal government created truth in sentencing laws and paid states to make sure that people serve long sentences. We got that money in 1995 and 1996. We haven't gotten any money since, yet we still have these laws on the books. In Oklahoma, you can earn up to 50% off your sentence. New York is terribly behind, and this is one of the things everybody says: programming, rehabilitation, the ability to earn time off makes things safer. I really believe, truly, that the only way you solve this staffing crisis is you get people out. You need to reduce the population. You really do. We have way too many people in there that don't need to be there. People serving really, really long sentences. You also need to prevent, you can't have a situation where corrections officers are serving 24-hour shift after 24-hour shift. I've heard from officers that served 36 straight hours. It's absurd. It's not uncommon, as you say, and that's inhumane totally. So we're setting up a combustible situation, and all stakeholders need to be involved. We should be investing in people who are incarcerated because, as you said, they're coming back into our communities. Many people come back as leaders too, and we could all benefit from a safer and more humane system. Yes?
Basically, my question is that what is it that my question is what will you do if you do end up becoming part of the state assembly, and will you be able to try and redirect the power of the funding for the MTA to the state legislators, so that way we don't have to worry about another situation like with Andrew Cuomo back in when he was governor?
The MTA funding, you mean? Yeah, I mean, I think I would certainly be a vote for free buses and free public transport more broadly, honestly. As a freshman legislator, I have to be honest, you don't get to change the structure of the funding, but I would be a strong vote for public transit. I can tell you, I don't have a car, I take public transit everywhere. I've taken it for the entire time I've lived in New York City. I take it everywhere all over the city. I think it's a marvel. I think it needs to be invested in, and I think we need to make it as accessible as possible for everybody. Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I think Jeff had it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
You introduced yourself to the same electorate last time, and we were all happy, some of us, to support you. And so you start with a nice, nothing's easy, I know nothing's easy, that kind of thing. You start with a kind of, I don't know, nice running start because you worked hard and introduced yourself to the community, even though you're from the community and live there. And my question is partially motivated by what our sister said before. I can think of 100 urban issues where you'd be, including transit, where you'd be a great ally. But in the ballot initiative one, I had to call friends in the Adirondacks to ask them, what do you think of alienating parkland? Remember ballot initiative one? And they said, the ones that do sustainable economic development and are also ecologists said, vote for it because the only alternative is the prison economy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we have to develop a prison economy alternative for your relatives and everyone else. And I guess it's not a question, I really think we need somebody like you because we all in this district pay for that stuff.
Right. We all do. We all pay, as I mentioned, $3 billion a year for the prison. And it can't be that I empathize with the fear of losing jobs if a prison closes, but that can't be how we do public policy, because it's just borne by mostly black and brown men from communities in the city. It's not equitable, it's not fair. And so just to go back though to the conservation angle of things, I do want to take that part. You know, my dad worked for the Nature Conservancy for 40 years. That was his entire life's work. So environmental issues are like fundamental. We used to take trips up to the Adirondacks and spend a lot of time with Parkland. I'm a huge proponent of environmental conservation. The model used by the Nature Conservancy, I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with it. You're probably familiar with the people stopping you on the street and trying to get it. But it's money well spent, because they basically act as a real estate company. They buy land and they make sure that it is never developed. And sometimes they do it in partnership with government, and sometimes they don't. But we need to be, especially in a moment like this where you've got Donald Trump, you know, letting us build mines in all these natural areas in Alaska, and we need to be fighting back with the tools that we have, and that means investing in conservation.
Yeah, as to sheds, the scaffolding, what can the assembly do about that?
Yeah, so there is a bill actually that's been introduced at the state level. So there's a couple. One of the problems is that there's not enough inspectors at the Department of Buildings to inspect buildings in a timely manner. That's not something that the state level can accomplish, because that needs to come from the city. But there are other problems too. Buildings put up scaffolding and don't even attempt to do the work that needs to be done before the inspection. And they really have no incentive to take that scaffolding down, because it's actually cheaper for them to keep up the scaffolding than it is for them to do the work. They then pass the money that they're spending on the scaffolding onto the tenants of the buildings. And in communities that are the most disadvantaged, there's the least political power, the scaffolding stays up for the longest. So it's actually a social justice issue, I think, in my estimation as well. But if you had, the bill would incentivize buildings to get scaffolding down more quickly by giving them a break if they get it up and down, and finding them incrementally higher and higher amounts if they don't do the work. And that would provide financial incentives to get the scaffolding and the sheds up and down much more quickly. Because if it's just as cheap for them to keep the scaffolding up, then they just keep it up. That's what we've seen. Yes?
Just a follow-up on this question. How long is this going to be going on for in terms of having this law? I mean, it's like, I understand there was problems years ago in terms of bricks falling down on people and things like that. But I really know the law in terms of, you know.
It's in Morningside Heights this year, actually. The brick that led to the scaffolding law, the local law, it's actually tragically killed a young girl named Grace Gold. I think it was 116th Street. It's now called Grace Gold Way.
My second cousin. Tragically, I hosted her for dinner 2 nights before that.
Oh my, well.
She was going to Barnard in her first week. So.
Yeah. Well, these are all, but I mean, it's a very human story, and it was with good intentions that a law like that is passed to protect people. This law would not create any lack of safety, because the idea is that scaffolding goes up every so often, building gets inspected, if work needs to be done, it gets done, and the scaffolding comes down. The problem is the law requires scaffolding to go up at these intervals, the inspections don't happen and the work doesn't happen. So nobody's talking about not putting it up when it's necessary. We're talking about getting it down as soon as possible after it's not necessary anymore. The law hasn't, the state law that I'm discussing hasn't passed yet. I will say there's more people talking about this issue now than I think have ever talked about it. If you ask any of my friends, I've been ranting about this for like 10 years. So I'm glad to see some progress on it finally. Yes?
Is there a paucity of inspectors at the DOB? Because in my building, the work has it's been going on for more than 2 years, and it's been now about 6 months since the work was finished, and the scaffolding remains, and we've been waiting for an inspector.
Right. Yes, there is. And that's something that I think the incoming mayor has said directly that he will address. There's also this proposal to use drones to inspect buildings, which, like, to me it sounds a little bit, I don't know, I'm like skeptical of drones, but if it's just a drone to do the inspection and it can save time and money, maybe it's a good idea. It's something to explore. But yes, there's a huge backlog.
Okay, I think, well, let's, if you have a short question.
But it's fine to move on.
Okay, so, thank you so much.
Thank you, Arlene. If you guys go to Eli, the number 4, ny.com, you can find out more about me, sign up for my list and everything. The primary election is not till next June, but you'll see me at the, you'll see me out there. Yeah.
Too late to start canvassing.
No, I think I'm starting where I ended last time instead of where I started. So I just had a launch party on Saturday. I see some people in the room who were there. We had over 200 people there. My first launch party, it was like 50 of my friends. So that's the difference between having gone through it and a spirit and people that are paying attention. I welcome anybody. This takes everybody to win a campaign and to win the changes we want to see. It takes energy, it takes time, it takes money. So I welcome everybody to this campaign. Thank you.